People always assume that if you work in operations, you're replaceable. Not because they say it directly. Most of the time nobody says it out loud. They just act like it. They thank the sales team for closing deals, praise leadership for strategy, congratulate product teams for innovation, and somehow forget the people who actually make the company function every day. For 8 years I worked at a logistics technology company called Northbridge Systems. Official title: Operations Program Manager. Unofficial title: the woman people called when something stopped working. My name is Emily. I'm 36 now. This happened a year ago and I still think about how close I came to quietly accepting everything. For a long time I believed that if I worked hard enough, stayed professional enough, solved enough problems, eventually people would notice. Turns out work doesn't always reward effort. Sometimes it only rewards visibility. When I joined Northbridge, we were around 90 people. Medium-sized office. Open floor plan. Coffee machine that broke every Thursday. Everyone knew each other's names. The CEO walked around and asked people about their weekends. Back then I thought I had found one of those rare places where competence mattered. I started as a coordinator. Spreadsheet work. Scheduling. Process documentation. Meeting notes. Nobody dreams of doing those things. But I liked order. I liked figuring out why something failed. I liked making complicated systems feel simple. Within 6 months people started coming directly to me. Not because I had authority. Because I knew where things broke. Client onboarding delayed? Ask Emily. Finance waiting for approvals? Ask Emily. Warehouse complaining about missing data? Ask Emily. Someone accidentally created 3 versions of the same report, and nobody knew which one was real. Emily. First I liked being needed. Then I realized being needed and being valued are not the same thing. Year 3 changed everything. Northbridge had grown too fast. New clients. New regions. New internal tools. Different teams building processes independently. Nobody noticed the chaos because revenue kept increasing. Until one Monday. I still remember the date because that week felt like 6 months. A major client audit revealed that our internal operational tracking was inconsistent. Orders showed different statuses depending on which department looked at them. Support saw one number. Finance saw another. Warehouses saw a third. Nobody trusted the reports. The client suspended expansion negotiations. Leadership panicked. Emergency meetings. Consultants. Slides. Everybody talking. Nobody solving. One afternoon our COO stood in front of 20 people and asked, "Does anyone actually understand how information moves through this company?" Silence. I raised my hand. Not because I wanted attention. I just genuinely knew. For years I had built private process maps for myself. Nothing official. Just diagrams and workflows so I could survive my job. I stood up and spent 20 minutes explaining every handoff. Where requests originated. Where approvals stalled. Where information duplicated. Which teams unknowingly created bottlenecks. The room went quiet. Not impressed quiet. More like uncomfortable quiet. Because suddenly everyone realized one operations manager understood the business better than directors did. After the meeting the COO stopped me. "Where did you get all this?" "I made it." "When?" "Mostly after work." He looked confused. "Why?" "Because nobody else was doing it." I didn't say that. I just smiled. Over the next 6 months they asked me to formalize it. First I thought they meant documentation. What they actually wanted was a complete operating framework. No consultants. No software vendors. Just me. I said yes. Worst professional decision and best professional decision of my life. My days became impossible. Normal job from 8 to 6. Process design from 7 to midnight. Weekends. Early mornings. Whiteboards. Notes. Testing. Interviews. I met with every department. People started opening up. Not because they trusted management. Because they trusted me. Warehouse supervisors explained shortcuts nobody documented. Analysts showed me unofficial reports. Support teams admitted they manually fixed errors every day. Finance revealed they rebuilt data by hand before every quarterly review. Everyone had workarounds. Nobody had a system. I built one. Not software. A complete operational architecture. Decision rules. Escalation logic. Approval paths. performance metrics, cross-team ownership. Nothing glamorous, but it connected everything. When the pilot launched, delays dropped. Meetings got shorter. People stopped sending emergency emails at 11 at night. Departments started cooperating instead of blaming each other. 3 months later, company performance improved enough that leadership presented results to investors. Nobody expected what happened next. The investors loved it. Expansion approved. Hiring increased. Revenue projections jumped. Suddenly everyone talked about Northbridge transformation. That became the official name. Nobody asked who built it. At the quarterly meeting, the CEO stood on stage. Slides, charts, growth numbers. He thanked executives, department leaders, external advisors. Then he said, "And of course, thanks to everyone behind the scenes." People clapped. That was it. No names. Afterward, coworkers came to my desk. Rachel from finance, Tom from operations, Jenna from support. They all said versions of the same thing. "That was your work." I laughed. "It's fine." It wasn't fine. Not because I needed applause. Because I realized something important. When work becomes invisible, people start believing it creates itself. That year I got promoted. New title. Small raise. More responsibility. No ownership. No influence. No seat at leadership meetings. But I stayed. Because despite everything, I loved the people. My team wasn't formal. More like a network. People across departments. We helped each other. Shared information. Covered mistakes. Celebrated small wins. Friday lunches. Late night messages. Memes during difficult projects. That part felt real. My personal life was functional. My relationship ended around that time. Nothing dramatic. My boyfriend told me one evening, "You're emotionally at work even when you're home." He wasn't wrong. I wasn't unhappy. I was consumed. But honestly, I miss work more than I missed him. That realization scared me. So I tried setting boundaries. Leave office by 6. No weekend messages. No checking dashboards. It lasted exactly 9 days. Because problems don't care about boundaries. One Tuesday evening, Rachel called. Finance couldn't close month-end reporting. Leadership wanted answers by morning. Nobody asked me directly. I joined anyway. We stayed until 1:30 a.m. Solved it. At midnight, somebody ordered pizza. At 1 in the morning, people started telling stories. Laughing. Complaining. For a moment, it felt less like work and more like surviving something together. That night, I understood why I stayed. Not for titles. Not for bonuses. People. That became my mistake. Because companies change. People leave. And eventually somebody arrives who sees relationships as inefficiency. That person arrived 2 years later. And that's when everything started falling apart. The new COO started on a Monday. By Wednesday, half the office had opinions. His name was Daniel Mercer. 38. Consulting background. 2 restructurings. 1 acquisition. A reputation for operational excellence. Which usually means making fewer people do more work. His first company meeting looked polished. No flashy speeches. No motivational slogans. Just clean slides and confident numbers. He talked about efficiency, scalability, resource optimization. Everything sounded reasonable. That's the dangerous kind. Nobody resists reasonable. After the meeting, Rachel dropped into my office. "What do you think?" I shrugged. "Too early." She stared at me. "That means you hate him." I laughed. "Not hate. Concern. There's a specific type of manager that scares me. Not loud managers. Confident managers who understand metrics but not people." Daniel spent his first month meeting department heads. Second month reviewing budgets. Third month introducing something called structural alignment. Nobody knew what that meant. Soon we found out. New reporting lines. New approval chains. Fewer cross-functional meetings. Everything centralized. Every decision had to move upward. On paper it looked cleaner. In reality it slowed everything. Support couldn't solve issues without approval. Operations waited for leadership. Managers stopped collaborating because accountability became political. People adapted. They always do. But morale changed. The office got quieter. Less joking. More calendar invites. More phrases like, "Not my responsibility. Please submit formally. We'll revisit next quarter." Those phrases are warning signs. Meanwhile, my workload doubled. Nobody announced it. Just happened. When processes break, operations absorbs the impact. Suddenly my days became 8 o'clock unblock onboarding, 9:30 emergency review, 11 o'clock escalation meeting, 1300 hours redesign reporting, 1500 hours fix warehouse bottleneck, 1700 hours explain why previous fixes no longer worked, then actual work after hours. One Thursday Daniel requested a meeting. Just me and him. His office looked staged. Minimalist. No personal photos. Desk perfectly empty. He gestured toward a chair. "You've been here a while." 8 years. He nodded. "I've heard your name constantly." Never a good sign. He opened a folder. Inside were diagrams. My diagrams. Versions of the operating framework I built. He tapped the pages. "These are excellent." I waited. "I think we've become overly dependent on informal knowledge." I stayed quiet. He continued. "You understand too much of the company." That sentence felt strange. Too much? I document everything. He smiled. Documentation isn't transferability. Then he asked, "If you disappeared tomorrow, how long until operations normalized?" I thought about the question. Not emotionally. Practically. Honestly, months. Maybe longer. Not because I was special. Because nobody had time to understand the entire system. I answered carefully. "We'd recover eventually." Daniel nodded. "That's a problem." I didn't understand at first. Then I did. He wasn't complimenting me. He was identifying risk. And people identified as risk become targets. Over the next weeks things shifted. Meetings happen without me. Projects reassigned. Requests routed through directors. First I thought maybe it was healthy. Delegation. Distribution. Then Rachel called me. "You know they created a process governance committee?" "No. They're reviewing your frameworks." I laughed. "My frameworks?" "They're presenting them as company methodology." That bothered me more than I expected. Not because of ownership. Because nobody using them understood why they worked. Frameworks without context become bureaucracy. A month later Daniel invited me again. This time HR joined. Never a good sign. Daniel folded his hands. "We've evaluated organizational structure." I already knew. "We believe your role should evolve." Corporate language. I waited. "We're eliminating independent operational architecture responsibilities." I blinked. "What does that mean?" "We're standardizing execution." He slid papers. New title. Lower scope. Smaller team. Salary unchanged. For now. Reading it felt surreal. Years building internal systems. Years connecting teams. Now my role became implementation support. Basically translating decisions made by people who didn't understand operations. I looked up. "Why?" Daniel answered immediately. No employee should become central to execution. There it was. Not performance. Control. I asked, "What happens to cross-functional coordination?" "We've assigned ownership to directors. People who never coordinated." "What about process maintenance?" "Departments will manage themselves." That sentence alone told me he didn't understand. Departments never manage themselves. People manage relationships. I left without signing. That afternoon my coworkers somehow found out. Rachel came first. Then Tom. Then Jenna. Then 6 others. Nobody asked directly. They just sat. One by one. Like waiting rooms after bad news. Tom finally said, "You built half this place." I smiled. "No. We did." He shook his head. "No. You connected it." That hit harder than recognition from leadership ever could. That evening everyone stayed late. Nobody said why. People worked. Talked. Complained. At 9 somebody brought snacks. At 10 Jenna said, "If you leave this place changes." I answered automatically. "No one is irreplaceable." The room got quiet. Rachel looked at me. "That's not true." Nobody spoke after that. I drove home around midnight. Apartment quiet. Laundry unfolded. Plants needing water. Normal life waiting. I sat at the kitchen table and opened the proposal again. New structure. Reduced influence. No guarantees. No recognition. And suddenly I realized something uncomfortable. For years I thought my value was solving problems. But maybe my actual value was making everyone else's work possible. And nobody notices infrastructure until it disappears. I closed the laptop. For the first time in years. I didn't open it again that night. The next morning I came to work early. Coffee. Empty office. My notebook. And I started writing something. Not a resignation letter. Not documentation. Something else. For the first time in 8 years. I started calculating what work would actually look like. Without me holding everything together. I didn't resign. That surprised even me. If this were one of those stories people tell online, this would be the part where I dramatically walked out and everyone realized my value overnight. Real life doesn't work like that. Most people don't leave immediately. They stay. They test whether things can still be fixed. That's what I did. For 3 weeks I acted exactly like before. Same hours. Same professionalism. Same support. But I stopped doing invisible work. That was the only change. No more anticipating problems. No more fixing issues nobody officially owned. No more translating executive decisions into reality. No more late-night coordination. No more quietly carrying 5 departments. Only my actual responsibilities. First, nobody noticed. Week 1 looked normal. Week 2 felt slower. Week 3 was interesting. Support response times increased. Project launches slipped. Departments started escalating conflicts. Meeting hours increased. People began sending messages. Quick question. Do you know who owns this? Can you just help once? I answered politely. Please follow the new governance process. Exactly as leadership wanted. Suddenly everyone discovered process maps don't execute themselves. One Monday I arrived at 8:10. My calendar had 17 meetings. 17. Half of them were issues that previously never reached leadership because someone, usually me, resolved them before they became visible. Rachel called. You seeing this? I opened the dashboard. Approval backlog up 38%. Escalations doubled. Cross-team response time almost tripled. Not catastrophic. Just inefficient. The dangerous kind. At lunch I walked past a conference room. Daniel was inside with directors. Slide on screen. Operational friction analysis. I almost laughed. That friction had a name. Me not compensating anymore. That afternoon I got invited. Large room. Directors. HR. Daniel standing. He clicked slides. Coordination delays. Ownership confusion. Execution inconsistency. Then he said, we underestimated implementation dependencies. That's executive language for, we broke something. He looked at me. Emily, what are you seeing? Everybody turned. I thought carefully, then answered honestly. Nothing unexpected. Silence. Daniel frowned. I continued. The operating model assumed informal coordination would disappear naturally. Nobody spoke. I kept going. It didn't disappear. It stopped being subsidized. A director asked, what does that mean? I looked around, then said the thing nobody wanted to say. For years people solved problems outside official structure. Heads nodded. I continued. People called each other. Shared context. Took ownership. Helped departments they didn't manage. Daniel crossed his arms. That's inefficient. I nodded. It can be. Then I paused. But relationships are not inefficiency. The room stayed quiet. I continued. When processes become more important than outcomes, people stop helping. Nobody interrupted. I wasn't angry. Just tired. I opened one dashboard. Pointed. See this issue? Everyone looked. 3 departments involved. Click. Previously solved in one conversation. Next screen. Now 6 approvals. Next. Average completion time increased from 4 hours to 3 days. Another screen. Same people. Next. Same workload. Next. Different trust. Nobody moved. Daniel finally said, So what are you proposing? That question irritated me. Not because of content, because it came after months of removing the people who understood the work. I answered calmly, I'm not proposing. He stared. I continued, this structure already exists. Meeting ended early. That afternoon my inbox exploded. Coworkers, managers, people asking for help. For the first time in years, I didn't absorb it. I redirected. Official owners, official channels, official accountability. 3 days later the first major issue happened. Nothing dramatic. No systems crashed. No clients left. Much more realistic. A strategic onboarding project failed. Timeline missed. Internal dependencies unmanaged. Client escalation. Estimated impact. Several million delayed. Emergency meeting. Entire leadership there. I wasn't invited. Until 30 minutes before. I entered. People looked exhausted. Whiteboards full. Daniel spoke first. Emily, can you review? I reviewed. 20 minutes. Then asked one question. Who owned coordination? Nobody answered. Because everyone owned part. Nobody owned outcome. Classic failure. I outlined recovery. Simple. Assign one accountable lead. Restore direct communication. Reduce approvals. Temporary working group. People started taking notes. Meeting ended. As people left, Rachel stayed behind. She looked at me. You know what's annoying? What? You're still solving it. I smiled. No. She looked confused. I pointed. They solved it. She laughed. No, you translated chaos into decisions again. That stayed with me. That night I went home thinking about something uncomfortable. Maybe the problem wasn't that people didn't value operational work. Maybe operational work becomes invisible when done well. People notice fires. Not prevention. 1 week later Daniel scheduled another one-on-one. Different energy this time. No HR. No folder. He looked tired. He started directly. I think I misunderstood your role. I didn't answer. He continued. I thought systems created execution. I waited. He looked at the window. You create execution. That wasn't victory. It felt sad. Because it took months of friction for someone to understand what dozens of people already knew. Then he said something unexpected. I owe you an apology. I didn't respond immediately. Not because I wanted power. Because I wanted to understand whether he meant it. He continued. I kept measuring structure and ignored trust. That sentence felt real. Then he asked, what would you do? I thought, long enough to be honest. Then answered, I wouldn't rebuild the old model. He looked surprised. I continued, people shouldn't depend on one person. He nodded slowly. I kept going. But you also can't remove relationships and expect work to survive. He wrote something down. Then asked, if you had authority, what would change? I looked at him. For the first time, I realized I actually had an answer. And once I started talking, I didn't stop for 40 minutes. 40 minutes became 3 meetings. 3 meetings became a workshop. The workshop became a project. Nobody announced it. Nobody gave it a dramatic name. Started with one sentence. Daniel looked around the room and said, Emily will lead redesign. Lead. Not coordinate. Not support. Lead. That word felt unfamiliar. I accepted under one condition. Everything would be visible. No invisible labor. No hidden dependencies. No saving projects in silence. If something failed, it failed publicly. If work required extra effort, it would be documented. If teams depended on relationships, we would admit it instead of pretending processes solved everything. Daniel agreed. We started Monday. No consultants. No executive presentations. Just people. 24 employees from 8 departments. Operations. Support. Finance. Logistics. Client services. Data. Product. Infrastructure. 3 rules. No hierarchy inside the room. No blaming. No talking about ideal situations. Only real work. The first week shocked leadership. People started saying things out loud. Support admitted they manually corrected reports. Finance admitted deadlines were impossible without unofficial help. Warehouse managers admitted they ignored procedures to keep deliveries moving. Directors admitted they often approved things they didn't fully understand. Nobody was lazy. Nobody was incompetent. People had simply built workarounds because reality didn't match structure. We mapped everything. Not software. Human behavior. Who people actually called. Who explained things. Who calmed clients. Who connected teams. Who carried decisions. Patterns appeared immediately. The company didn't run vertically. It ran through trust. Some people became connection points. Not because of titles. Because others trusted them. And when those people burned out, everyone felt it. Including me. Week 2 we rebuilt ownership. Not ownership of tasks. Ownership of outcomes. Cross-functional leads. Smaller approvals. Shorter paths. Clear escalation. Simple rules. Nothing revolutionary. Mostly removing unnecessary complexity. Daniel attended every session. Never interrupted. Mostly listened. People noticed. That mattered more than speeches. By week 4 something unexpected happened. People stopped coming directly to me. Not because they didn't need help. Because they knew who to talk to. For the first time in years. My inbox became normal. One afternoon I looked at my calendar. 6 meetings. Not 16. I actually finished work before 6. I sat in my car outside the office and didn't start the engine. I just sat there. Because I realized I had forgotten what leaving on time felt like. Rachel knocked on my window. She laughed. Car broken. No. She opened the passenger door. You look weird. I smiled. I think I'm done. Her face changed. You're leaving. I thought. Then shook my head. No. She looked confused. I looked toward the building. I think I'm done carrying everything. She smiled. That's healthier. 3 months later we presented results. Leadership. Board. Department heads. No dramatic numbers. Just reality. Project delivery improved. Escalations dropped. Meeting time decreased. Employee satisfaction improved. Turnover stabilized. Clients noticed. One board member asked, "What changed?" Daniel answered before I could. His exact words. We stopped confusing control with management. Nobody clapped, which made it feel more real. After the meeting, Daniel stopped me. He handed me a document. I opened it. New role. Director of Operational Design. Different reporting structure. Smaller salary increase than I expected. Bigger authority than I expected. Dedicated team. Decision access. One line stood out. Responsible for sustainable execution. Not execution. Sustainable execution. I laughed. Daniel asked, "What?" I pointed. That line took us 6 months. He smiled. Yes. I signed. Not because of the title. Because for once the role matched the work. Months passed. Things kept changing. Some people left. Some had already mentally left long before. New people joined. Old habits returned sometimes. That's normal. Culture isn't fixed. It's maintenance. Rachel became head of business operations. Tom moved into strategy. Jenna finally took a vacation longer than 4 days. I hired people differently. Not just competence. Curiosity. Collaboration. People who ask, who else is affected? That question predicts success better than confidence. My personal life stayed quiet. I moved apartments. Started reading again. Stopped opening email at midnight. Started cooking. Called friends back. Nothing cinematic. Just ordinary things. One Friday evening I stayed late. Not because I had to. Just finishing notes. Office mostly empty. I walked across the floor. People talking. Someone laughing. Somebody helping another team. Nothing extraordinary. And suddenly I remembered that first year. The version of me that thought being valuable meant being needed all the time. She was wrong. Being valuable isn't becoming impossible to replace. It's building something that works even when you go home. Before leaving I passed a conference room. Inside was a team solving a problem. No managers. No escalation. No emergency. Just people working. One of them saw me. "Emily, quick question?" I smiled. Old instinct. Step in. Solve. Take over. Instead, I asked, "Who owns it?" They answered. I nodded. "You've got this." I grabbed my bag and left. No messages. No laptop. No guilt. Outside, the air felt cold. I looked at the office windows for a second, then got into my car and drove home. And for the first time in almost a decade, work stayed at work.